We are less than 2 months out from the big Robotaxi reveal. It could be as little as a month or even less. And I saw this fantastic article on X about it by a gentleman named Phil Beisel, who is joining me today. What on earth? What are the odds? Phil is a former Rivian engineer, a founding engineer there, really, or you can correct me when we get to that part. But we're going to have a conversation all about the Robotaxi and what it actually means. I'm Brian. Welcome to Futuraza. Did I get your credentials right? Your bona fides?
You did. I started Rivian in 2017, and I founded the technical team at Rivian when there was no technical team, and started that in Palo Alto.
Would you
And
say a clean slate is harder than fixing a running team?
it's more enjoyable, though. I
Yeah.
mean, running team. I prefer only the clean slate approach. So I don't think I'm very good at jumping in on running teams. So
Especially when you factor in all the bad habits that are going to be impossible to break.
yeah, it's very difficult. You have to unwire things, a lot of things. I mean, Rivian was a very special opportunity that fit with my various startups. I mean, I had been at Apple 2 times in my career. First time Apple felt smaller. Second time Apple felt massive, and it was good to leave. And and Rivian was a startup, but very different kind of startup. I mean, a startup that had to be capitalized at extreme amounts just to do what it had to do, and had to grow massively. And our hope was that we would be capitalized to do these things. And it's very difficult to raise that kind of money. It just takes a lot. But when I started at Rivian, there was really no technical footprint in the company. The founder RJ understood what he wanted to do there, but he was really starting on the vehicle side, and the company was Detroit based at the time, and now it's really based in Southern California in Orange County, but has its large tech campus in Palo Alto, literally down the street from Tesla. So I started there in 2017 and founded the tech team, and what our job was is to define the software-defined architecture of the vehicle, starting with what would the network architecture be, we were building our own ECUs, very high level type of ECUs, and then what embedded systems will we put on there, and what kind of application framework, and build the applications from the ground up. I also founded the mobile team within Rivian to build the mobile app, and I founded the cloud team as well, which was all about, well, it's the connective glue between outside interfaces to the car, including mobile, but it's also the big data system where the car pushes its telemetry data, and you're able then to access that data for various interesting use cases.
Okay.
So I did all those things, but I didn't take them all to the finish line. I moved around in the company, and eventually, a year before I left, I founded a futures team focused on future technologies, things that were really, I wouldn't say orthogonal to the vehicle space, but certainly maybe tangential, and not necessarily right down the center line of what you would do with vehicle. So,
well, today we're talking Robotaxi because of this article. Now, if you're not following Phil, I can recommend it. This is Phil's X account here. And if we go down here, just to right here, we get to this article. Robotaxi Rodeo, Austin City Limits. We're about 1 month out from Robotaxi's Go Live event in Austin, with the trial set to begin in June. Robotaxi will usher in a new era of transportation, massively disrupting existing models and reshaping how we move. Let's dive in and explore. The review, I don't think we need to cover the review, but if you need that, folks, it's right here. You can hit pause or check out the article, linked in the description. But Ground Zero, a city of 1 million people in the heart of Texas, serves both the capital of Texas and the center of culture and music. Growing city, the hub of tech in the state. Is there a reason that Austin is important over and above the fact that Tesla is just there?
yeah, that's a good question. I think there's a multitude of things that make it work. It's nearby. Tesla Gigafactory there. It's in a good environment for early EV type adoption, autonomy adoption. It's very deregulated in terms of that, and I think it's got a progressive mindset. And I don't mean necessarily politically; I mean progressive mindset towards tech. So I think it's quite ideal. I mean, it's and on top of that, it's a complex city with complex roadways. It's a sizable city. I think it's the 11th largest city nationally, if I'm right, something like that. And it's growing like mad, and it's got what you would say is the proper set of early adopters that will jump into these things without hesitation. So
I
I think
I
I
would
think
agree
that
with you.
yeah,
Yeah, I would agree with you. I would say that there are places that are more tech conservative that might find the idea of it too off-putting to reach critical mass and adoption. And if it works in Austin, it'll work anywhere. You've got every kind of traffic feature. You've got,
right.
you know, I don't know if you have tunnels, but tunnel is a pretty easy one. But it's got everything there, and you've got big, messy, ugly intersections. You've got those weird U-turns at the underpass, which is very strange. But more importantly, Texas has been proactive in creating a regulatory environment that fosters innovation for autonomous vehicles. They've got a website. I showed it in a video earlier this week
Mm,
where you can see all of the companies who are registered, where they're registered and operating, and what their current status is, training, deployed, what have you. It's
yes.
very it's helpful for those companies to have a framework in which to operate that is clearly not too restrictive. Austin benefits from both state level progressive legislation and local government that is open to working with tech companies, making it ideal. And just 15 miles to Tesla's Gigafactory in Del Valle, it makes sense for Austin to be the launch site. So, Project Rodeo, why don't you talk me through this?
Well, this is their code name for the build up to the trial, and what they've done is essentially they're driving the roadways. They're testing the service. They're acting as if the service is live. They have supervising. I mean, what has been said to us publicly is there's about 300 test operators. Now, I think that's a mix of people between supervising operators, passengers, and then those people being trained to do remote operation in certain circumstances. So I think
Mhm.
that's the guts of it. Is that I think what they're trying to do is literally drive every roadway and every configuration. Now, I think they've done a lot of this in simulation. I think they've mapped the city in simulation. They have terrific simulator, and they can run, you know, the cars through the roadways in the simulator. But nothing beats, going at it live and doing it. So, and I suspect this has been going on for longer than we think. Um,
Without a doubt. Would you
yeah,
know if that blue Model Y over there is a testing FSD? I mean,
you, you,
you'd
you
never
couldn't
know.
know unless all those cars had manufacturer plates on them,
Hmm.
and then maybe
Even
many
then, you
do.
don't know. And
Yeah,
even
you don't
then, you
really
don't
know. Right. So, because I'm certain that every single one of them has had a supervising driver. Even if the software version is unsupervised, they are, moding it as a supervised model, and I think in this case they're trained for only the most critical interventions because they actually want to see what happens. I mean, most of the time when we're using FSD as consumers right now, we pull out so early that from any particular circumstance that it's unclear if Tesla gets enough data from that to understand why we even did it half the time, unless we tell them through a recording. And most people that are doing interventions now are really, it's really they're just breaking out of FSD to take different route or something like that. So I think it's very what they're trying to do is they're trying to actually find interventions, find intersections that they don't work through, turns that they don't perfectly map to. So I think that's the goal.
And what I would want to ask of the FSD team is when I disengage because I change my mind about where I'm going, do you
Mm,
want me to tell you that or am I wasting your time?
right,
But
and I'm guessing a lot of people just simply don't.
don't
You know,
use
they're
it.
they don't tell Tesla anything half the time. I'm sure.
I'm sure because
Yeah,
I'll tell you, I don't think those reports go anywhere. I swear. I swear to you, they don't
yeah.
go anywhere. Because I had for a year straight every time it would disengage in this one very specific, very dangerous maneuver. And next day, let's try it again. Please don't. Please stop trying to turn there. But, all right. So let's jump back over to the article here. Um, like we said, it spans most, if not all, of Austin's road network, highways, surface streets, complex intersections, probably using internal tools, like you said, supporting test software for route planning, logging, scenario role play. And we know that they run simulations. We've seen what some of the simulations look like. They look unbelievably good. Remote operators are also being trained, individuals who will work from centralized locations, monitoring the fleet, providing assistance when vehicles get stuck or encounter ambiguous situations. So that's all happening. Project Rodeo name is fitting. Okay. Definitionally unsupervised.
Right.
Talk me through this.
Yeah. So I think what's on tap here is that they've trained version 14,
Mm-hmm.
and version 14 would be the first version that supersets both supervised and unsupervised operation. Right. That's what I think it will do. So in other words, it will be deployed globally across the entire customer fleet as well as Robotaxi. For the rest of us, we'll use it in supervised mode for some foreseeable time, and then it will chip away at various areas where we can use it regulatorily unsupervised. But I think what's happening here is that they're going to be using this model. And why is this model? How and why is this model different? It is probably trained on an enormous amount of data. Could be 2x to an order of magnitude more data than 13. It's likely. Um, in addition to that, it probably is a bigger model. And this may get a little too deep in the weeds, but it's probably invoking um, this new structural kind of thing called mixture of experts.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't talk about this in the article here. I'm writing a technical article about that now. So the idea is, I think what Tesla's done is they have, and they may have this in 13, we just don't know. I mean, it's not as if we can completely, we can only guess a little bit, right? Um, but I suspect that what they're doing is they are allowing for certain modules of this thing to work in local environments or to be tuned to local environments, and that may be weather based, or it may just be, city streets versus highways, parking lots versus construction zones. I mean, a lot of different things like that. I mean, you think about it. If you think about driving in general, while we think it is maybe a unified thing, it's not, right? How you move around a parking lot is completely different than how you move down a highway,
Mm-hmm.
et cetera. So, and they spoke to this in the Q1 earnings call. Shock spoke to this mixture experts model, and so I think they're leaning in on that. And I think that the challenge here in Austin is that I think they're introducing a new model while they're introducing the service sort of simultaneously.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's that's quite a big thing to do because um you don't know. I mean, you can obviously when you lean into a new version, you're the whole point of that is to make it better from a safety perspective, a road field perspective, et cetera. I mean, this would be true of any piece of software, or newer version. But what you can't know is how many regressions you've created in that software, how many problems that you've introduced that you had fixed in the previous version. So, they have to do quite a bit of testing. But what I think is happening here, Brian, is that Tesla has gotten so good at this, is that they have a very, very, by just simply running test data through the system, and probably part of the reason that they've run around with this Project Rodeo is to collect data, frankly, to collect exact situational intersections, everything, and be able to then bring that back as either training data or validation data. So by using it internally as validation data, they can essentially, before they even do a street mile with a new version, they can tell us, or they can tell themselves, um, how good or how bad it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, so I think that's what the process has been. It's been not just the flow of how do we do this thing called Robotaxi, because it is different. It is different than using our cars. I mean, when we use our car, we get in, we drive, we you know, this has got to pull over to, meet a person at where their start point is. It's got to pull over safely at a destination. So that's another added thing that's not really, if you think about version 13, it hasn't figured out all those use cases, but it
Definitely.
clearly needs to here. Um, so I think that's being addressed, and I think it's just driving the hell out of the place.
So we are going to be doing this video in two parts because we don't want it to get too crazy long. But the last part of the first part we're going to do before we break for part two tomorrow, I assume, is I wanted to talk about phase one, the trial. When it rolls out, I've heard people speculating how many cars it will be. I've heard speculation from the hundreds to 1,000, but I understand you might have a different perspective. What are you thinking?
Well, I think they've leaned in and said 10 to 20 cars. Now, here's the point. I think is the most important point is, um, while we all know that Robotaxi is literally built for scale, it is a no limits model, is built for scale from every aspect of this thing, from the actual sensor choice that they're using in FSD to the production of cybercab, volume production, lower cost vehicles. Everything's built for scale, but you don't start there. You start small, and so I think in a sense, um, it's it could go one of two ways, but I suspect it'll be rather underwhelming. At
Mm.
least, yeah, underwhelming from the perspective from our kind of narrow timeline perspective. In other words, I think they may float out 10, 20, 30 vehicles. Nothing stops them from scaling this on day two, day three, day four, right?
Mhm.
But the goal here, if you look at the goals, you really want to ascertain, is this working correctly for the use case of robotaxi? Is it safe as hell? Um, and are all our processes that we've designed around this working for us? And it is possible that literally within a day or two of operation, something goes wrong. And I don't mean necessarily an intervention or an accident or something like that, but something they're seeing, and they'll address that very quickly and fix it, whether it's a process issue or a technology issue, and then get at it again. So I think it's just my opinion of this is that while they've been at this with probably, if you think of it, if they're going to put 10 or 20 cars in the service, that's very limited, very limited. Um, and in fact, there's probably like over 100 cars running Austin today, right now. So I mean, it's not as if I don't think they have the fleet ready to go. I just think that they're going to be very, very conservative and try to, I think, what do I know about Tesla that's perhaps different than others? They're not a marketing forward company; they're an engineering forward company. And what this means is they're not going to, throw up banners and signs and have this big splash event. They're literally going to lean in on the technical aspects of of the of the program, of the service, and get those right, because that's what matters to them. I mean, if you look at it, if you push out a year later and you think about massive deployment and scale, multi cities, getting into phase two or phase three of deployment, what they've done in Austin in the first month is sort of irrelevant, except yeah,
Yes.
except getting it right. Except getting it right. That's the key.
Well, look at the Wright brothers' first flight. What if they had pushed for distance instead of a successful landing? They might have gone twice as far before crashing.
Before crashing, yeah.
And that's, the other thing, and correct me if I'm wrong here, we expect to have this many people working on it for this many rides, which means we need to overbuild. We need to have more capacity in case anything goes wrong. So if we have triple capacity, that's
Right,
doable with 10 to 20 cabs versus if we're trying to do hundreds,
right.
we're not going to have triple capacity. That's insane. That would be the wrong number. So what I hear you saying is, while successes can scale, failures always scale and sometimes beyond control. Keep them keep the fire small until we know we can contain it.
It would be, from an engineering perspective, it's how I want to do it. I would say in some certain companies, management would have very different goals. But I think given Tesla, given who is the manager here overall, I think that there's a great understanding of what it takes to do these things right, and I think they'll lean in on safety, 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 and then prove the service, and then scale it from there. And literally nothing prevents them from scaling on day two. But I don't expect some huge splash and hundreds of cars in service instantly. They have no track record for doing it other than what they've seen. What have they seen? They've seen success within their simulating systems, and they've seen success on the
with the
ground.
employee.
Yeah, with
Yeah.
the employee trial. They're doing that up here in Palo Alto as well.
Hmm.
Um, But all of that doesn't matter when you put real customers in the car. Things change, the dynamics change, and things that you thought completely made sense suddenly slightly don't make sense anymore and have to get fixed or addressed in some way. Yeah. So
A critical goal of the trial is data collection. Every ride will be recorded and uploaded, including full fidelity, the microphones, absolutely everything. It's the black box on steroids because we need to understand if there's an error, how it got there in the first place.
yep.
So the initial trial will include validating the performance, capturing the ride data, targeting end-to-end operational workflows, which is all of the logistics behind it, refining geofencing strategies in real time, gathering user feedback, identifying learning from novel edge cases encountered in a live environment. And I suspect those would be slightly different than the ones encountered before because now we're talking passengers instead of drivers, evaluating regulatory engagement, legal compliance, and building internal confidence. So, guys, tomorrow we're coming back with part two. I hope maybe it'll be tomorrow. I'm not sure. I'll have to look at the schedule. I don't always get to pick when they run because my editor's very good at that. But in the meantime, I do want to say a huge thanks to Phil. Follow him on X. His link is in the description. This article is great, and he's got a bunch of other great stuff, and he's added other stuff from before. That's also very valuable. I want to thank you, Phil, for coming out, and subscribe if you haven't, or you might miss part two because it's important. It's good stuff. And everybody else, like, subscribe, leave a comment. You know what you're doing. Stay tuned, stay juicy, and I cannot wait to hear from you, clever robots, while you're being driven around in a clever robot of your own.